Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert, and this is the weekly live stream I do. I do a couple of times weekly, actually, where it's just a Q&A session with me. So this is your chance to ask me questions, anything that's on your mind, anything about job search, careers, anything within that. So the hidden job market, networking, job interviews, resumes, all that kind of stuff, offers, negotiation, everything that's in there. It's all good and more besides. You could ask me about my food dislikes. You could ask me how I managed to live a life being this handsome. All the burning questions that you've been wondering about. This is your moment of glory has finally arrived. So if you're seeing my beautiful face, you should see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my face. If you have been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to get into the chat box and say stuff and ask me questions. Let me know what you're struggling with, what you're wondering about, and I will do my best to help you out. This is episode number 105 of Honest HR Nitrous. We've done 105 of these, apparently. The title is Struggling to Get Hired? Ask Me Anything, live. So that's what we're doing here. And we're going to kick things off. I see there's already some people in the chat right now. Before we do, just a quick shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. You guys are awesome. Membership has the privileges. And also my Patreons, my super thanks donors. Those are always nice to get. And to my viewers and participants, you guys are awesome. Okay, without any further ado, let's get down to this. So we have Umi. Is that how you say that? I'm terrible with names, so if I mispronounce your name, don't take it personally. I mispronounce everybody's name equally, so it's fair. Uni says, no interview call is coming. What to do? Uni says, graphic designing and animation. And then Uni says, hi. Okay, let's dive in. So if you're not getting any responses from job applications, okay, you've got two basic options here, okay? Number one is to work on your applications themselves, right? So if they're reaching employers who are looking, but yet the applications are not effective in the sense that they're getting you interviews, then maybe there's a problem with your application. So the first thing to do would be to look at that, okay? The second thing would be to understand that a normal sort of outcome for a lot of people is you're going to have a ratio of the amount of applications you send out to the amount of responses you get, like favorable responses where they bring you in for the next step, which is either an interview, a virtual interview, a screening call, whatever the next step is. There's going to be a ratio. So for some people, that ratio is 10%. That means if they send out 100 applications, they get 10 responses, like 10 interviews. Usually we don't see that. That's rather on the high side. For a lot of people, it might be more like 1% or 0.1%, depending on details. Okay, so if you just send out like 20 applications and you haven't gotten an interview yet, there may not necessarily be anything wrong with what you're doing. It's just you need to do more, right? That's the idea. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing to look at, right? Now, this might be all self-evident up to this point, but I need to frame this. The second thing that you can do, okay, that may be the problem is that you're looking in the wrong place, okay? The posted job market, that means all the jobs where, you can find job postings for, that's called the posted job market. That's very oversaturated. It always has been. It always will be, it seems, at least for the foreseeable future. And it certainly is the case right now. That means that, the reality is that only about 20% of jobs are posted. It's actually a little bit less than that. Now, even though only 20% of the jobs have a job posting that you can discover, you have something like 80% of the applicants pursuing those 20% of the jobs. So it's very competitive. And these days you're getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applicants that are applying for online jobs. Sometimes you can get like 1,000 applicants, right? So statistically, if you apply for a job with 1,000 applicants, I mean, statistically, you have a 0.1% chance of getting that job, right? Without even taking anything else into account. So you can see kind of what you're up against. So if it was purely a matter of random chance, you would need to apply to several thousand jobs to get for a reasonable expectation of like an interview, right? That's just the unfortunate math for this stuff. And it all sounds very, very depressing, doesn't it? The good news is that a lot of people, especially young people, they are ignorant of the hidden job market. The hidden job market is where most of the jobs are. Like 80% of jobs are in the hidden job market, right? We just did a thing like maybe half an hour ago where we were asking ChatGPT this kind of stuff. And I always do this, but I'm going to do it again today just to kick things off, right? Okay, so of all the jobs that are that exist, how many of those jobs are posted that have a job posting associated with them? Right? I do this for two reasons. One, to encourage people to use some of these AI tools if they've never used them before. They're not the be-all, end-all, but they're damn useful. The other thing is that I also do this so you can see this isn't coming from me. You can get a lot of independent evidence of this stuff. Okay? Now, it changes its tune every once in a while. Now it's saying only about 30 to 35% of jobs are posted online. The rest, 60 to 70, it's actually 15 to 20 is about more accurate. Okay? Okay, so this is a thing. So I thought it was more like around 20% of jobs that are posted of all the jobs that exist. Let's see what it says. So just have some fun with this. And then I'm going to get to questions in a moment. You're right to question that. It can be as low as 20. Yeah, it's actually like 15 to 20. Anyway, so the real takeaway is that the majority of jobs, especially in higher level or specialized fields, are filled through networking, referrals, or internal connections, not through posted job ads. The reality is that it's a lot of jobs at the low level too. Okay, so tapping into the hidden market is a critical strategy. So all the jobs that are there, but they just haven't created a job posting and put it on the internet so that you can discover it. Those are called the hidden job market. Okay, all those jobs. It's not really hidden. It's there. It's just that they haven't posted it online, or they haven't put up a big sign that says, now hiring, ask, like you can't see my hand, now hiring, ask inside, right? So that's where 80% of the jobs are. Okay, so if you're not looking there, then that might be one reason why it's taking a long time to get any bites. Okay, so the big question is, if you've never looked in the hidden job market, you've never even heard of the hidden job market until now, how do you do that, right? We're going to get into it. But first, let's get to questions. Matthew says, I recently reached out to several hiring managers and received some helpful responses. Direct outreach does work. Yes, it absolutely does. Should I continue to apply to job postings in conjunction with this method? That's entirely up to you. Now, what I would recommend is you don't just do one thing, okay? I did a video about a month ago called How I'd Get a Job, and it's like 45 minutes long, and I went over 11 different methods of how to get a job. And direct outreach is one, informational interviews is one, applying to posted jobs is one. There's a lot of others, okay? I would say do 2 to 3 methods for sure, okay? Maybe 2 of them are kind of prominent, and maybe a third is kind of like, sort of afterthought, right? It's up to you entirely what methods you would pick, okay? And depending on your, where you are in the world and what industry you're in and what level you're in and, all the details, it's going to vary, right? So, but But personally, for me, I would, looking at posted jobs really would not be my main focus under almost any scenario for people. That's honestly how I would approach it. Uni says, no animation job in Portal as I see. Okay, so there's a couple of dimensions to that, Uni. Number one is that just because you don't see any posted jobs doesn't mean people aren't hiring, okay? In every industry, people are retiring, there's turnover, and all this kind of stuff. So, it's an ongoing thing. People leave due to attrition. That's a constant thing. So they're constantly replacing people, in every industry, even during leaner times. Like, for example, in a lot of the IT industries, like whether you're a developer or a systems admin or you do design or whatever, they're experiencing a downturn right now. So it can be a bit tough right now, but that doesn't mean that hiring is down to zero. It means that there is hiring, it's reduced, right? So a lot of the way this stuff works, the first thing to understand about what it's like on the other side of the table when you're hiring is that, you look in the hidden job market first, okay? You look, like, if a hiring manager has to fill a position, generally speaking, the first thing they do is they think, do I know anyone? Do I know anyone that would be good for this? Right? And if they do, they look at those people first. Okay, so maybe they know 3 people. Maybe people at other companies that they work with or they've known for years, whatever. They'll go and they'll contact those people and say, hey, are you, entirely satisfied being there? We might have something and, we could talk about it if you're open, something like that, right? But if the answer is no, they don't know anyone, then they think, okay, I don't know anyone. Now, the next place I'm going to look is there an internal candidate that I can promote upwards or move sideways into this role, right? That's not ideal because the problem is with an internal candidate, you're moving them around. So you're filling a hole, but you're creating another hole. Like, that's the big problem with internal candidates. It's not your preferred thing to do. Okay. The advantage is you get someone who's tried and true. You've known them for a while. They've been working here for a while. So they're a known quantity, what you're getting, right? But the problem is like, you're not really any further ahead because you've now created a new vacancy in their old job and you got to fill that now, right? But let's say there are no internal candidates that you really think are good for this. You want everybody to stay where they are. You want to add someone who can do this, right? So then the third place you think is, okay, I'm going to go down the hall to the HR department. I'm going to see if they have any resumes on file for people that, looked really good and we might have interviewed them recently and they're probably still looking, but we couldn't hire them outright. They are maybe the runner-up or something like that, but they looked pretty good. Do we have anyone like that? Like that you've already talked to, you've already checked references, you've already done a background check on, see if they'll come in if they're interested in this, right? That's the third place you look. And if it turns out like, no, we don't have anyone like that, sorry. It's like, okay, the fourth thing I do is I post the job, right? You see how that works? So there are 3 opportunities to fill that job before the job is posted publicly. Because the thing is, when you post a job publicly, it's expensive and it's a pain in the ass. And that means, as a hiring manager, you've got to like write a job description. You've got to figure out what the requirements are. You got to like work with a recruiter a lot of times. They're the ones that do the grunt work and post it and do screening calls and stuff. You've got your actual work to do. This is all a sideshow. You know what I mean? So you don't want to do this unless absolutely necessary, right? Now imagine if you could contact the hiring manager, before they've posted a job. They haven't posted anything on their website. You don't know what they're hiring, but you just sent them a message saying, hey, I know you employ graphic designers and animators. I live like 5 minutes away from you. I know you guys do exciting work in this area of animation. If ever you're looking for someone who can do that, let me know. I'm a fully qualified animator. I solved this problem. I got skills in this area. I'd love to work for you. If ever you're looking, please let me know. Have a great day, right? Imagine if you just sent out that message, right? And the hiring manager had received that, recently, or they receive it while they're actively trying to fill this role, right? Well, you can get in there and get that job before it even gets posted. The hiring manager thinks like, okay, great. Here's a person. They're doing everything right. They're showing enthusiasm. The note they sent me was professional. Like their professional communication skills look really good. They're actually quite persuasive. They seem to have the technical chops and they seem to have the right attitude. They're obviously enthusiastic about working here, as evidenced by the fact they're reaching out. I'm going to check out this person first. And if they work out, then we don't have to post this job. We don't have to do all this song and dance. I can just hire them and bam, I can get on with my life, and do my actual job, which is not hiring people. It's doing my actual work, running a animation division of a company or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's how this stuff works. That's the hidden job market. And that's, how powerful it is. So learn all you can about this. Don't get all your advice from me or any other person. Get your advice from a variety of different sources and then just go out and start trying things. Like you learn it by doing it. Okay. And if you're a IT type person, and I'm showing my biases here, being an IT person, excuse me, that you probably don't have overdeveloped communication, collaboration, and networking skills, this is a chance for you to really develop those. You can do most of it remotely using social media and things like this, but then you go in and talk to someone when they want to talk to you. They've said, come down, let's have a meeting. We want to talk to you. It feels like a referral. Okay, so learn about all this stuff. Like, as you can see, I'm just typing stuff into Chat GPT, just to show everyone, like, this is not coming from me. This is a thing. So go and learn about it. And that can really open up a lot of doors for you. If you want additional help, I do have a course where I walk people through this stuff step by step, how everything works. If you're interested in that, link in the description if you are. Okay, let's get on with the questions here. Gerardo Garcia says, hey boss, thank you for what you do. Because of your networking advice about starting on LinkedIn, I landed a new job with a local casino with way more opportunities. Keep doing what you do. Well, thank you, Gerardo Garcia. That's awesome news. And congratulations, that I'm sure you're over the moon and I'm sure you're very happy to come out of job search mode and get back into the swing of things. So way to go. And you did it entirely yourself. No one can share credit with you on that. You're the one that did it, and you're highly employable and highly valuable, and you were so the entire time. So congratulations. That's great. And thank you for telling me. Kathy says, looking for a city or police administrative jobs, has great retirement benefits, but interviews don't look at me in interview. Okay. Or interviewers don't look at me in interview. How can I be more likable? I also have a Master of Arts in Educational Counseling. I think the latest video on my channel is how to be likable. So maybe go watch my latest video and that might help you. What I've learned about being likable and having personal charisma and stuff is it's really basic stuff. It's surprising just how basic it is. Now, okay, I'm just going to say this, okay? Here's a weird kind of story, okay? I don't know if anyone here, I'm guessing not. I don't know if anyone here has heard of someone called Mary Whitehouse. Okay? Not Amy Winehouse, Mary Whitehouse. She was a conservative activist in the United Kingdom, so in England, right? And she complained about like sex and violence on TV, back in the 70s or something. And you would think like, oh, what an off-putting type person, one of these conservative, closed-minded old people, But then you hear her talk, and even before she opens her mouth, she's this like little old lady with like, little old lady clothes, white hair and, big glasses and all this kind of stuff. But like, she's smiling and you think like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting. And before she even opens her mouth, you're kind of like, you kind of, I don't hate her. She actually seems kind of friendly, And then she opens her mouth and she gives like a speech. And, you're surprised. Most people in Britain were actually, a lot of young people were surprised at how magnetic she was. She was very likable, lots of charisma. And, a big part of it is just stupid little things like smiling, like looking approachable. So someone like you shake, like when you walk into a building and somebody meets you and you shake their hand, right? Most people, they kind of have a neutral kind of expression on their face, like, this kind of thing, right? But if you kind of look more pleasant and approachable, like you meet someone, you're trying to do what I'm doing now, right? You look a little bit of a smile, right? If you call that a smile, like a grin, I'm trying to look like I'm in a good mood, like I'm happy, I'm friendly, and if someone comes up and talks to me, I'll be very friendly and say nice things, And so when you shake someone's hand and you're looking more like this, they like you a bit more. They're like, hey, it's good to meet you, right? And that's even before you've really opened your mouth. It's silly little things like this that make all the difference in the world. And then when you do open your mouth, you don't say anything that would make the other person feel awkward. You do precisely the opposite. You try and make them feel good. It's almost like you say to yourself, this meeting I have, this encounter with this person, this interaction, I want them to walk away from it thinking that, wow, that was easy and kind of fun. And if I had to interact with that person again, I would look forward to that, That's your goal, right? You want to make them feel at ease. You want to make them feel that they're talking to someone who's not going to bite their head off, not going to say anything that's going to make them feel bad in any way. You know what I mean? It's this kind of thing, and that's kind of the beginnings of being likable. Everything sort of is based off that. Some people go to interviews and they ask the interviewer like very blunt, pointed questions where they really put them on the spot. And it's like, I know you're wanting to know that, but now is not the time and the place. And even if you did want to try and go there and bring up this topic, you should maybe do it in a nicer way. Don't put people on the spot. Don't make them feel awkward or whatever. You know what I mean? But a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people, especially at lower levels, I mean, you get people at every level, but especially people at lower levels, because maybe they haven't been taught this, don't do that, because yes, they will answer your question or whatever, but they'll answer your question, but also end up not liking you. You're the one that made this whole thing awkward for me. You're the one that made this rude, cutting comment about me that I don't appreciate. Or you said this thing that I'm not sure if that's kind of a jab at me or a sarcastic kind of thing. I'm not sure how to take that. I feel weird about it. It clearly wasn't like this totally friendly compliment, So things like that, right? Understanding the situation and having a goal for you to be the other person should enjoy dealing with me. Even if we have to deal with, negative things or whatever, they should get a clearly positive vibe coming from me. they don't hate me after this encounter. Okay, like I can't go into the whole thing right now, but hopefully that's like a starting place for that. Look at like diplomats and ambassadors. They are like the heavyweight champions of this kind of thing, because the whole point of like diplomacy, especially like in the world of politics, like, relations between countries and stuff, is that that the two parties disagree on a lot of things. But despite that, their job is to have a very positive relationship with the other party. So they're masters of like likability and making the other person feel like welcome and, like this kind of thing, right? It's a really valuable skill. So even just the absolute basics of that kind of stuff will really help you in your career. What it will do is it'll make everyone around you like you and want to work with you, Like imagine if everyone you encountered, they all go away thinking like, wow, that person's awesome. I'd like to work with them. You know how many job offers and things you would get from like the people that that end up going off and being in a position where they can like, they have a bit of power, they can hire people, they can work with people, and it's that alone. You get to pick, just like you pick your friends, you get to pick people you want to work with every day, right? You're going to pick people you like. So hopefully that helps Kathy in some way. I know that was a very meandering answer. Vidya Sagar, is that how you say that? Says, I'm trying internally for many suitable positions, excuse me, with good interview points or PowerPoints, but without any success. So what do you recommend for my situation? I'm trying internally for many suitable positions, good interviews. I've got absolutely nothing to go on. I don't even know what industry you're in. I don't know what your level you're in. So I can only give you an extremely general answer, okay? So what I would say is that it's about relationships. It's about developing good relationships with people where they like you, where they see you as someone that's helpful, friendly, easy to work with, doesn't complain, doesn't create awkwardness. If there is bad news, you know how to address it in a very mature, professional, and non-threatening way. You don't turn it into some kind of accusation or, you know what I mean? So if you have a reputation of always acting like that, that will help open up doors with people that know you and have worked with you. Okay, so that's what I can say. That would be a great start. The World Ends with a Whimper says, should I not apply if LinkedIn shows more than 500 applicants for the job? I don't know. I wouldn't recommend anyone applying on LinkedIn or Indeed for anything, so I'm not sure. If it's like, I don't know, if you're getting success with it, then great. But it's one of the toughest ways to get a job is by going head to head with hundreds and hundreds of other people and, being put like compared side by side, and you have to elevate yourself above the crowd. It's very tough to do. Dahl says, thank you. First of all, I wonder what you would recommend as someone who had a lot of interview opportunities but could not get any offers and lost his confidence as a result. Okay, so Dahl, there's a ratio between like how many targets you have or leads you have or prospects, whatever you want to call them, how many applications you've done, and the ones that call you back, like for an interview, right? There's also a ratio between like, the interviews and things you have and the offers you get, right? So it's a ratio, maybe like 10 to 1, something like that, right? It's going to vary, for a variety of reasons. It's going to vary, right? But if you've been doing, I don't know, I would say like you've done 50 interviews and you haven't got a single offer, then I would start to worry. Up until that point, it's not necessarily because there's anything wrong. It just could be random chance, right? So, that's going to vary by what country, what industry, what level you're at, etc. But it's hard to know, like, am I doing something wrong or is it just random chance? It's very hard. So what I recommend is that people don't just do one thing in their job search campaign. You employ a couple of different methods, right? And that usually, gives you more opportunities to get bites and get offers and things. So, but the way people would usually address this is they would get a career coach. Okay. I'm not a career coach. I don't offer that service, so that's not me, but you would work with a career coach, and the idea is that you would do mock interviews with the career coach. So you do a pretend interview with them, and they would presumably be like a recruiter or something. So they can say, okay, listen, based on how you did in this interview, here's my feedback and my advice to you. Okay. And that's a way to sort of get some feedback, some objective feedback by someone who's helping you. The problem is when you interview with like recruiters or whatever, the recruiter works for the employer. Their loyalty is to the employer. They don't care about you at all. Okay. You know what I'm saying? They're not here to help you. They are here as your adversary. They are on the other side of the table, and you will never get objective feedback from them, because objective feedback means they have to tell you something negative, and they're not going to tell you anything negative. Sometimes even a lot of companies, especially in the United States, they have official hiring policies that say they can't give feedback, right? So if they do say anything, it's usually like some nice sounding kiss off, So, right. So with a interview coach or a career coach, they're someone that's on your side. They're helping you. They're not helping the company. They're in your court. So when they give you feedback, that's what you pay for. Their objective opinion, and their job is to help you get employed, right? So that would be the standard way of doing it. Now, the poor man's version of that is you could get friends and family members, do mock interviews with them, and I don't know, if you trust these people, if you trust their opinion, just do several interviews with several of your friends and family and say, like, honestly, what do you think? Like, I'm looking for feedback that will help me improve. So give it to me straight. What's your honest opinion that I could maybe work on? And then see what they say. And then if you do it with several people independently and they're all telling you the same thing, they're all saying, like, my God, you're speaking too quiet. You've got to speak up. Then, okay, then it's probably true. Then it's something you should work on, right? So those are some things you can do. Okay, but unless you've done 50 interviews with no offer, I would say it's not necessarily that you're doing anything wrong. It just could be random chance. Okay, Uni says, I post in LinkedIn open to work by adding all skills, but still no response. Yeah, you got to do a lot more than that, Uni. And the LinkedIn open to work thing is a double-edged sword. Some people say you should do it. Some people say you shouldn't. So if it's not working for you, try taking it off and then see, right? You're welcome, Gerardo Garcia. Uni says, I'm sending my CV to a lot of recruiters of big force company, but no response after a lot of effort. Yeah, there's a lot more to job search than doing things like this, okay? So learn about all the other things you can do, okay? You're welcome, Kathy. I'm glad you got something out of that. Dahl says, in addition to the question I asked before, as a new graduate, I found lots of job interview opportunities compared to my friends, but they got few interviews and got at least one offer, unlike me. Okay. Well, this is the problem with comparing yourself to others, right? Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, right? You have no idea. You're different, You might even have different ambitions and goals, right? So comparing yourself to other people doesn't really work, right? You know what I'm saying? You can't just get validation by always following a crowd and saying, well, I'm going to try and do exactly the same thing as these people, and I'm going to expect exactly the same results. That's usually a recipe for mediocrity. It helps having, to a degree, going out in your own direction and playing to your strengths. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily bad what you've done here. I'm just saying you got to beware of that type of thinking. Okay, that might be a great place to start out. If you don't know anything, you just sort of start by doing what you see other people doing. Okay, great. But now that you're trying to get a bit more sophisticated with it, trying to fix problems and things, now it's time to learn how this stuff actually works, and then you can make some decisions that are unique to you, that play to your strengths, and downplay your weaknesses, and then hopefully you'll succeed, right? Because you see, you have to beat your friends at this game, unfortunately, right? That's generally how it works. So it's hard to beat people when you're doing exactly the same things as them, except you're following them. Now, you have many options, okay? I did a video about a month ago called How I'd Get a Job. And you know what? I'm going to see if I can pull it up, because I keep talking about it, but I want to actually show people what I'm referring to. Okay, so let's see here. You'll just have to bear with me for one moment. Here we go. Okay, so this is the video I'm talking about, this one right here, the one with the blue. Okay, so the dark blue, called How I'd Get a Job. So check that out. It's 46 minutes, but I cover 11 different methods of job search. Okay, now you don't have to do all 11, of course, but the point is there's more than just applying to posted positions that you've found through an internet job search. Okay, there's more than Indeed and LinkedIn. In fact, those are not very good ways of finding a job. So learn about the other methods. Step into that world, and you'll be surprised at what you find there. Okay, now, just to get you started also, let's do something here. Okay, so the job search method called direct outreach, is it effective? What is it? And how can I do it? Okay, this is just so you see that this stuff isn't all coming from me. I'm not just making this up. Okay, this is real. Okay, so direct outreach is one of the most powerful job search strategies, especially when you're looking to tap the hidden job market. Okay, so it's highly effective, blah, blah, blah. It gives you some information on it. Okay, so this is ChatGPT, if you're not familiar with that. Some of these AI tools are not the be-all, end-all, but they're damn useful for specific things. So you could start your research with this. Like, for example, you could say, okay, so what are several different job search methods, and how effective are they, and how do you do them? Okay, like, I don't know. I mean, you could start your research like this. And then as you learn more about these different things, go further and further afield, and getting advice about them and looking into how you do each things. So, okay, so posted jobs, fair enough. Networking, traditional and social media. Okay, you could dive into any of these and keep going. Direct outreach, like we talked about. Okay, recruiters and headhunters, I guess. I wouldn't really do that one, but company career pages, nah. Job fairs, well, if you're at the entry level, yeah. Internships and temp jobs, yes. Volunteering, meh. Personal branding, content creation, meh. Referral systems, ask your network. That's something you could look into. But like, for example, there's many different types of networking. Direct outreach was one method. That's where you don't know these people. You reach out to them, right? And you can do it on things like LinkedIn and Google Maps, to discover them and then to reach out to them. So it's a form of networking where you don't know the person, right? There's other types of networking too. There's many things in this umbrella of networking. If you happen to know 1 million people, sure, you can reach out to them. You can reach out to the people you do know, like coworkers at previous jobs, things like this, right? But usually that's not really going to result in a job unless you have like very close relationships with people that are in high places, unless you have that, that's not really going to result in a job. That's why things like direct outreach are so powerful, because, first of all, there's so many people out there. There's so many employers. You wouldn't realize how many employers there actually are, but you don't see them. So like, you don't know that they're there. So direct outreach can help you discover them, and then you reach out to them and put your name in there. Yeah. Where were we here? Okay, sending my CV to a lot of recruiters. Okay, we did that. Okay, and Dal says, thank you, I really appreciate it. Okay, great. Yeah, like I encourage people, like learn all you can about this. Careers are basically, the way you have a successful career in large part is about learning a lot of this stuff. Like learning networking is the single most useful thing you can do. It doesn't mean you got to like know a million people and you got to schmooze, like with these people. That's not what it's about. If you're a raging extrovert, you can do it that way. That is possible. But for most of us introverts, we don't like that stuff. That's like being in living hell, and you can do networking if you're an introvert like me, you can do networking. You can be very effective at it. You do a lot of it online. You discover people, discover the employers, discover the targets, do an initial reach out to the targets, see which ones are receptive and which ones aren't, and then you set up meetings and stuff. Basically, you get invited in to talk to them. Unless they want to talk to you and they invite you in, you don't go any further. You don't ever have any face-to-face contact with people. That's how I did it. I've been to a lot of networking events that were it's just chaos and it's very inefficient, so I don't really have a lot of patience for that kind of thing. I prefer it to be much more targeted, and I'm not alone. A lot of people are like that. Okay, we've reached the end of the chat. There's 16 people here. Get into the chat if you have any questions or comments. I will stay as long as people want me to. Anything you've been struggling with or wondering about in terms of job search is fair game, and careers. Like, we can talk about all that stuff. I haven't finished my drink yet, so we could go longer if you guys have any questions. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to this stuff, and you see, the thing is, what I've learned as a technical introvert is that over the course of my life is that, I mean, the world is a very connected place. Humans are connected, and the world of business is all interconnected, right? It's very hard to succeed if you're just isolated as yourself. You know what I mean? If you want to make money, you at least need connections to customers. You know what I mean? To sell whatever it is, right? So the more connections you have, or the more targeted connections you have, useful connections, that's directly proportional to, how much you will succeed. It's very hard to succeed just by yourself. If nobody sees your talent, I mean, you can create something, but if you have no way of getting it in front of people for them to see how awesome it is, explain to me how you can succeed like that. You know what I mean? So the more connections you have and the more you can build those connections on demand, is directly proportional to how far you can go, A lot of introverts, I'm sure, really don't want to hear that. You hear that and you go like, oh, crap, that sucks. I hate that. Or you deny it and say, no, that's horseshit. I don't agree with that. It's like, okay, well, get some evidence and let's compare notes. You know what I mean? Bruno says, I had a 6-month contract. Now that my contract is finished, I have to start from zero again to find another job. Now I do not want to take a contract role anymore because I hated when it finished. Um, okay. Is there a question in there? Let me know if you got a question there, Bruno, if you're wondering about something in specific. Uni says, in this skill section, I'm adding a lot of skill that will make recruiters confused. Okay. Well, then maybe you shouldn't do that. Don't add anything that's going to make them confused. Any advice on legitimate remote jobs? What advice are you looking for? What are you trying to do? What industry are you in? What level are you at? You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, remote jobs are an interesting thing because, I remember before remote jobs, before the pandemic, put it that way, remote jobs are weird because a lot of people could do their job remotely, but, you couldn't get authorization from your employer to do your job remotely, mainly because it wasn't about, it's just about trust is all it's about. It's not about efficiency or anything else. It's about trust. And the reality is that a lot of employers don't trust their low-level employees. If you're out of sight, we don't think that you're going to be working, right? Now, it works a little bit different with managers. Managers, like true managers, like if you're a general manager and hire, you're responsible for the financial performance of your unit, your business unit, all that matters is results. So they really don't care. Are you in the office? Are you at home? They really don't care. As long as you produce the results, that's kind of the thing. So that's built into your job anyway. If you don't meet the targets, then you're pretty much out the door. So that's kind of built in. But low-level employees, that's where people are paid by the hour. They're paid salaries. They don't think, they do. They're given orders and then they have to obey. They have to follow the orders. So you can't be held accountable if you were asked to do something stupid and it was totally ineffective and it didn't produce good results. It's not your fault. You don't get to make the decisions about what to do. You're just told to follow your instructions, right? So a lot of companies have a real problem with letting the workers, like at a low level, be, they're unsupervised, right? It's called Theory X. It's like, they make certain assumptions about employees. The assumptions are that you will do the bare minimum to keep your job. And if you are not supervised, you will slack off as much as possible, right? These are assumptions they're making. There's another type of company called Theory Y, which is the opposite. That's like startups and stuff where they assume that, you're here to work and to do this thing that you're passionate about. And that's where they try and just support you and get the hell out of your way and see what you can come up with, right? It's a totally different set of assumptions you're making about people. Are either of them true? No. The reality is some combination of the two in the middle, right? But different employers will have they'll be at a different place on that continuum, right? So the ones that are like really far towards Theory X, they don't want remote. They're really trying to stamp out remote work. Despite all common sense, they're just against it. So, and certain industries have higher concentrations of those types of companies, right? So that's the thing. Dahl says, I wonder under what conditions would you prefer your gap as a new graduate? A year gap of what? Like of work experience? Like between finishing school and starting a career job? Is that what you're saying? I don't know why anyone would prefer that. That is legitimate. Any reason that's legitimate why someone would prefer that? If that's what you're referring to. Yeah. No, and the other thing that I'm thinking is who cares? Like, one company, you see, every company, every employer has their own method, their own formula of placing value on a person, right? There is no universal way. That's why you go to one company, you do an interview, they reject you. You go to another company, you do pretty much the same interview with pretty much the same resume, and all of a sudden they hire you. They say, no, you're the one. that we want, right? Now you haven't changed. They've changed. These people looked at you, they said, no, not good. These people looked at you, they said, yeah, good stuff. You're the winner. You know, do you have control over that? No, you don't. But what you can do is you can apply to many different places. If these people don't think you're that valuable, hey, it's their loss. These people over here, they think you've got a lot of value. You end up working for them. You know, that's true of organizations, and that's true of individuals in the organization too, right? So a key thing is that when you're doing job search and you're reaching out, you need to reach out to a lot of targets, right? If you're applying to posted jobs with job applications, then you need to apply to a lot of them. If you're reaching out, like doing direct outreach, and you're reaching out to employers directly, you need to reach out to a lot of them, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, you know, and out there right now is a person that when they see you, they go, you're exactly what we're looking for right now. And they hire you. But for every one of those, there's several that goes, no, I've seen people like you before. We're not looking for that. You know? So that's how it always goes. So why I said that is because maybe some people out there, they consider like, oh, you've graduated from whatever program. We actually like it that you've taken a year off. You've, I don't know, backpacked around Indonesia or whatever. You know, we feel if that's the best, you know, life experience you can get. And now you're ready to start a career job. You know, that's their personal way of valuing things, or their lens. I'm sure there are people like that out there. And if not Indonesia, then Morocco, you know? Kind of one or the other, really. R says project management entry level. Okay. Yeah, well, I still don't know what industry you're in, so no, I can't elaborate. I mean, if you want to know, okay, seems like this information is pretty important to you. So learn how to do information interviews and go get it, right? Like, hopefully you know what an informational interview. That's where you meet with somebody, but it's not like a job interview. There's no discussion of jobs. You're there to simply learn from them. There's some very specific information that you want from them that they know, right? And you're there to talk about it, okay? So learn how to get an informational interview, and then learn how to conduct an informational interview. And probably the types of people that you would want to sit down with are the people that would hire someone in your industry for entry-level project management positions that are remote. You know, people that are open to remote jobs and that employ project managers. They have project managers working remotely who report to them, right? And say, what do you look for? Why do you feel that remote work in general is a good thing? And why do you feel that remote work for a project management position is a good thing that can be done effectively remotely? Because I know that opinion is divided to a degree on that subject. Why do you feel that it is a legitimate kind of thing that companies should offer, right? And what's your attitude personally to assessing people? And how do you know, like, you know, if someone might be a good candidate for remote work or not? Now, I can understand if you've worked with them for several years, you know them, you know they're responsible, you know, it's like, okay, then it's not hard to tell that, okay, this person can work from home. Fair enough. I trust them. But hiring someone new and then giving them a remote job, you know, what do you look for? How can one be sure that that person will be very productive and they'll be engaged with the larger work group and they are suited to that type of work? You know, get their thoughts on all the stuff, right? Like that would be probably pretty useful, right? So learn how to get an informational interview with several people in that position, and then ask them the questions that you're specifically wondering about with this. Okay, this is how you learn anything. Informational interviews. Find the person who knows, learn how to reach out to them, learn how to, get them to say, yes, come on down, let's talk about this, Okay, and then learn how to conduct one so that they give you the information that you're looking for. I've done hundreds and hundreds of these with CEOs. So it's really not that hard if you know how. So learn how to do it. And this will be the single biggest thing that will help you in your career because you can learn anything. You can get the answer to anything using this tool. And since there's no other questions, I'm just going to prolong this even more and we'll see what this thing says about it. Okay, so with regard to informational interviews, what are they? What are they used for? Are they useful? And how can I set them up and how do you conduct them? Okay, that's kind of a mouthful. Let's see what this thing says. And then the idea is that if you were doing this, you could start learning about this by diving into those different areas that I just mentioned, right? Okay. I don't know why this is going so slow. I guess OpenAI is having a bad day. Informational interview is a conversational meeting where you connect with somebody in your field or a company you're interested in to learn more about their career, their industry, and their role. It's not about directly asking for a job, but about gaining insight. Yeah, do not mention a job. Do not say anything that indicates in any way that this is like that you're looking for a job, or else the whole thing you blow it wide open. That's not the point of this. You want to be given pearls of wisdom here that will help you. Okay? You can actually turn this into a job thing in a certain way later, but it's critical you understand this is something completely different to a job interview. Okay? So I guess they give you a bunch of things. Yes, informational interview is incredibly useful for several reasons. And then it gives you, I don't know if I'd necessarily trust whatever it is here. I hope you're doing well. My name is, I'm currently, it's pretty basic. I would do a better job than this, but it gets you started. This gets you started, okay, on like informational interviews. You can learn all about them and then ask a ton of follow-up questions and then go and get your information from a variety of sources and then start doing these. This is how you learn. You learn by getting the information right from the horse's mouth, right from the people that are doing this, okay? Instead of like, I'm not trying to downplay myself here, but instead of from someone like me who's telling you how they operate, you find out how they operate from them, right? Directly. That's the idea, And then they will know way more than me or any other advisor about any specific question you have in your industry, in your location. They will know all the specifics because they're doing it. That's how you get that information, which will be much higher quality than any third party can give you. Dahl says, thank you. I was asked in the interviews if I considered the other sectors and if I want to pursue a master's degree, how should I approach those questions? Well, they're asking you if you want to pursue a master's degree. I can't answer that for you. That's up to you. If you consider the other sectors, well, once again, that's up to you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a personal preference. So, like this, okay, so this is a job interview you're talking about. They asked you in a job interview if you considered other things. If it is a job interview, your default response should be, this thing that I'm here for, that's really what I'm focused on. Like, I'm not closing my mind to considering other things in the future, I guess, but really my priority and my goal is to do this. That's what I'm most enthusiastic about. That's what my skills really prepare me to do. That's what I imagine my career path, going through. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I want to do. I'm not averse to like looking into these areas. They kind of might make sense. But I'm not wanting to go in that direction instead of this, that's kind of the default thing. You're here to get this job. This is the one you want. This is what you're excited about. This is what you're prepared for. This is what you're suited to. You know what I mean? That should be your blanket attitude in a job interview. Man, I think I'm coming down with a cold or something, or a sore throat. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, we've reached the end of the chat once again. Check out that course. All my advice for getting hired and building your career, all in one place. We talk about the posted job market. We talk about the hidden job market. I give you step-by-step process and templates and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that, check this out. There's a link in the description under the video feed for this live stream. And also, I have videos on each of my courses that describe them, so you can learn how they work, what they do, what you get, all that kind of stuff. So it's as transparent as possible. People here, I imagine, would be probably most interested in this one, and also this one here. This is something that's going to make you seen as a contender to be promoted upwards if that's what you're trying to do, if that's what you're interested in. You got to tack on many things to sort of move up into management, and one of them is having above average communication skills. Excuse me. So everything that I learned on my journey going from a supervisor when I started my career all the way to a CEO, where I sort of ended my corporate career, everything I learned about communication skills, I put into that course. So if you're interested in learning that, check that out. Link in the description. And there's also a video describing the course, giving you all the details of how it works. So there you go. Dahl says, I really appreciate it. You're welcome, Dahl. And thank you for being here and participating. Hopefully you got something out of this. There are 16 people here. If you have any questions about hiring, job search, careers, resumes, interviews, networking, negotiation, offers, all that kind of stuff, get in the chat. Let me know. I'm going to be here for another couple of minutes at least. And I can take a couple more questions before we wrap this up. Also, in the meantime, I do have this course here. This is called the $100 MBA, not the $100,000 MBA like some people thought it was. It's a $100 MBA. And what this is, it's a self-study course, and you get a reading list, like a bunch of textbooks. The textbooks are the same ones that are used in prominent MBA programs all over the world, like, for example, in Harvard Business School in their MBA program. So you're getting the same material as they're teaching in Harvard MBA. And I provide videos that guide you through the material. I give you my take on things, what I think is important, what I think is less important, and examples and case studies and stuff like that. I just sort of act as a guide. You get the majority of the learning comes from the books. But the thing is, it's entirely self-study. You could do this on your schedule. If you're not interested in learning all the different areas of business, you just care about marketing or accounting or finance or HR or quality or economics or whatever area you're into, you could just learn that area if that's what you want to do. If you just want to skim the whole thing, you could do that too, get a general understanding of what it is, or you could go really, really deep into each one of the topics, right? Each one of the areas. So whatever your goals are, you can get it. It's very flexible. I created it originally years ago for people that wanted to do entrepreneurship. They didn't want to go back to school for 2 years. They didn't want to drop thousands of dollars on like an MBA program. They didn't care about a certificate to impress everyone. You get an invoice with my course. You don't really get a certificate, that you can frame, or you could print one up, I suppose. But it's really just to deliver the knowledge. So you get the knowledge. The idea is you use it to prosper, either in a corporate career or you go the entrepreneurship track and do it that way. So that's the idea. So if you're interested in that, learning business, which is the scientific study of how to make money, if you're interested in that, that's the best bang for the buck around. Check it out. Link in the description. Maran Khan says, I'm failing interviews. I hold master's degree in employment relations. there's no correlation between like, learning the theory and being able to like do practical things. You know what I mean? Like in order to get good at the practical side, you need to work on the practical side. You know what I'm saying? So this is no different. It's like learning a sport or a musical instrument. You learn it by practice. Practice makes perfect. You first learn like, what answers to give, right? And what's going on. And then knowing that, then you have to rehearse in the same way that you're rehearsing for a play or anything else. A common thing that I recommend is your preparation for job interviews comes in 2 phases. The first phase, you work by yourself, usually in front of a mirror, sometimes. You learn all the job interview questions that you could be asked, right? You figure out what your answers are going to be. You memorize those answers, practice saying them, right? That's phase 1. Phase 2 is where you work with somebody. So you get a friend or family member to do mock interviews, right? Practice interviews. And this is where a lot of the real learning occurs. Now, if you take 2 weeks and just Monday to Friday, you do, say, 3 or 4 mock interviews per day, right? That's 30 to 40 pretend interviews in 2 weeks with various friends and family members playing the interviewer, and they're interviewing you, right? You'll be able to knock it out of the park. You go down there, you already know the answers, backwards, upside down. You've got a lot of confidence because you've heard these questions so many times. You've even practiced, contingency answers. What to say when they ask you something you don't understand. What to say when, you honestly don't know the answer. You know what I mean? You've prepared for and practiced all of that. So you go down there and, you knock it out of the park. That's how you do these things. Some people hire career coaches. I'm not a career coach. I don't provide that service, but like some people hire career coaches. The advantage of a career coach is also not just the experience of doing practice interviews, but you also get their professional feedback. And they say, this is what I honestly think is something you should work on. And here's how you should work on it. And you go away and you work on that and then you come back, right? So that's how people like get good at this stuff. There's a lot of executives that pay a lot of money to private HR companies that provide all these services that will help them interview really well. Mock interviews with like professional recruiters and things over and over and over again with feedback, right? So this is the way to get good at job interviews, And if you do this, what you get is you will do a good interview. Now, the biggest factor in the outcome is still going to be random chance. Everybody's got their own way of placing value on people. Different situations you walk into some kind of political thing going on and, there's office politics and whatever. So, you have no control over that. It's still random chance. But at least you know that you're going to be interviewing well. And usually you don't have to wait too long before getting hired that way. So that's the idea. Every second Monday, I do a live stream in collaboration with another YouTuber. Her name is Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. And she's a professional recruiter. She provides all the career coaching services and all that kind of stuff. So you could check her out if you're into that stuff, or many people provide those services. So you could pursue that if you want to. But one way or another, even friends and family, like it doesn't cost anything. The question then might be, do you trust these people's opinion, right? I think most people would say no, but at least it gives you practice doing an interview with somebody staring at you. That alone is like a big part of working on this. You learn to give a good interview despite all the anxiety and, you're out of your comfort zone and, you feel you got eyes on you and stuff like, you get more comfortable with that, right? It's like public speaking. The more you do, the better you get, right? Moran Khan says, I appreciate your help. You're welcome, Moran Khan. Okay, I guess we've reached the end of another one of these. I'm going to be live on Friday. I've got a couple of streams. I've got a stream I'm actually looking really forward to. It's the business live stream. I don't know if anyone here is interested in that stuff, but we're going to be talking about stack ranking. That's what some companies have done to rank their employees, and everyone's like an A, B, or a C. And you must have A's and B's and C's, and then the C's get fired and the A's get promoted. And, stack ranking and rank and yank, we're going to talk about those. So if anyone's interested in that stuff, come back on Friday, and I'll do another Q&A like this of Honest HR Nitrous if people have more questions. So, excuse me. So we'll go from there. In the meantime, I'll be back next week at the same time with more live streams. And check out my courses. And check out ChatGPT if you've never used it before, like this thing that we were doing. Go to chatgpt.com, right? Okay. I will put it here. I mean, hopefully everybody knows this, but just in case you don't, right here, right? So chatgpt.com. And play around with it. It's a useful tool. It's not amazing at everything, but it's really good, and it can really help you customize resumes and things like that if you're sending out lots of job applications. We didn't get into that today, but we could get into that next time. Okay, take care, everyone. You guys are awesome. We'll see you soon. Best of luck.